Good afternoon. Before I leave for North Carolina, which I'm going to do in a few minutes, I want to speak briefly about the terrible incident and accident that happened in Baltimore this morning. At about 1:30, a container ship struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which I've been over many, many times commuting from the state of Delaware, either on a train or by car. I've been in Baltimore Harbor many times. And the bridge collapsed, sending several people and vehicles into the water, into the river. And multiple U.S. Coast Guard units, which are stationed very nearby, thank God, were immediately deployed along with local emergency personnel. And the Coast Guard is leading the response to the port, where representatives from the Federal Highway Administration, the FBI, the Department of Transportation, the Army Corps of Engineers, as well as Maryland officials and Baltimore Police and Fire, are all working together to coordinate an emergency response. Officials at the scene estimate 8 people were unaccounted for still, were unaccounted for. That number might change. 2 have been rescued, 1 without injury, and 1 in critical condition. And the search and rescue operation is continuing for all those remaining as we speak. I spoke with Governor Moore this morning, as well as the Mayor of Baltimore, the county executive, both United States senators and the congressman. And my Secretary of Transportation is on the scene. I told them we're going to send all the federal resources they need as we respond to this emergency. And I mean all the federal resources. And we're going to rebuild that port together. Everything so far indicates that this was a terrible accident. At this time, we have no other indication, no other reason to believe there's any intentional act here. Personnel on board the ship were able to alert the Maryland Department of Transportation that they had lost control of their vessel, as you all know and reported. As a result, local authorities were able to close the bridge to traffic before the bridge was struck, which undoubtedly saved lives. And our prayers are with everyone involved in this terrible accident and all the families, especially those waiting for the news of their loved one right now. I know every minute in that circumstance feels like a lifetime. You just don't know. It's just terrible. We're incredibly grateful for the brave rescuers who immediately rushed to the scene, and to the people of Baltimore. I want to say, we're with you. We're going to stay with you as long as it takes. And like the governor said, you're Maryland tough, you're Baltimore strong, and we're going to get through this together. And I promise we're not leaving. Here's what's happening now. The search and rescue operation is our top priority. Ship traffic in the Port of Baltimore has been suspended until further notice, and we'll need to clear that channel before the ship traffic can resume. The Army Corps of Engineers is on the spot and is going to help lead this effort to clear the channel. The Port of Baltimore is one of the nation's largest shipping hubs, and I've been there a number of times as a senator and as a vice president. It handles a record amount of cargo last year. It's also the top port in America for both imports and exports of automobiles and light trucks. Around 850,000 vehicles go through that port every single year, and we're going to get it up and running again as soon as possible. 15,000 jobs depend on that port, and we're going to do everything we can to protect those jobs and help those workers. The bridge is also critical for travel, not just for Baltimore, but for the Northeast Corridor. Over 30,000 vehicles cross the Francis Scott Key Bridge on a daily basis. It's virtually, it's one of the most important elements for the economy in the Northeast and the quality of life. My transportation secretary is there now. As I told Governor Moore, I've directed my team to move heaven and earth to reopen the port and rebuild the bridge as soon as humanly possible. And we're going to work hand in hand with the support of Maryland to support Maryland whatever they ask for. We're going to work with our partners in Congress to make sure the state gets the support it needs. It's my intention that the federal government will pay for the entire cost of reconstructing that bridge, and I expect the Congress to support my effort. This is going to take some time. The people of Baltimore can count on us, though, to stick with them at every step of the way until the port is reopened and the bridge is rebuilt. You know, we're not leaving until this job gets done. Not leaving until then. So I just want to say God bless everybody everyone harmed this morning and their families. And may God bless the first responders, many of whom risking their lives. And the reason I'm not going to take a lot of questions, there's remaining issues that are open that we got to determine what's going to happen in terms of the rescue mission and the like. But
Do you plan to go to Baltimore, sir? And if so, how quickly?
I do, and as quickly as I can. That's what
You said the federal government's also going to pay for the repairs. I'm just curious, this was a ship that appears to be at fault. Is there any reason to believe that the company behind the ship should be held responsible? And then also, you mentioned...
That could be, but we're not going to wait for that to happen. We're going to pay for it to get the bridge rebuilt and opened.
What did you make of Israel's decision not to attend this meeting this week?
Oh, I don't want to get into that.
We're
I'll
going
have plenty of
Rafah.
time to talk about Rafah.
You mentioned the port. Can I ask about cars? About the port.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for being out. Thanks, everyone.
The president there addressing the devastating bridge collapse in Baltimore and making news on several fronts. One saying that the federal government would be there to rebuild this bridge, saying they would move heaven and earth to do that, and that the federal government would pick up the tab for rebuilding that bridge. That's something he said that Congress would have to address. He noted the economic impact, 15,000 jobs impacted here in this area as a result of it. He said, we're sending all the federal resources we need to deal with this massive search and rescue operation that is now underway. He called this a, quote, terrible accident, as officials have ruled out terrorism in this incident. He did say that he would also go to Baltimore, didn't give a time frame for that, but the president addressing this major incident. Meteorologist Derek Van Dam joins me now. Derek, what does 48-degree water do to a person?
Well, frankly, Manu, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous to be included within that type of water temperature, right? So we can see our heart levels rise rapidly. We can start to see our breathing rise rapidly, and we can lose consciousness very quickly. Hypothermia, cold shock sets in. It is a very dangerous water temperature to be succumb to. And just zooming in a little bit closer, you can see we've got the Chesapeake Bay to my east and the Patapsco River coming out of the Baltimore harbor here. And this is right where the Key Bridge actually collapsed earlier this morning. So we are going on over 12 hours. So when we talk about human survivability within these types of water temperatures, you can see from this graph 40 to 50 degree temperatures. That human survivability limit is roughly 1 to 3 hours before those physiological effects that I talked to you about a moment ago start to set in. Now, complicating the efforts not only below the water, but also at the surface of the water and above for the search and rescue operations that are currently ongoing is this tidal swing that we have right now. This is an exaggerated, we have it a full moon spring tide. So we have coastal flood advisories dotting the Chesapeake Bay, the Delmarva Peninsula, for instance. And you can see this wording here, dangerous rip currents. And this is just compounded by the fact that the Patapsco River is flowing out of the Baltimore harbor, and we've got the Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic coastal waters flowing out of this region as we approach low tide at 3:10 this afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. And then we'll see that reversal in the tides as we head towards a high tide peak later this evening. So that could make conditions difficult for those search and rescue operations of the boats, particularly on the surface of the water.
Absolutely brutal. Thank you, Derek Van Dam, for breaking this down.